G'day, fuckheads! I was conflicted on making this video. On one hand, it's Age of Sigmar, which is a bit yucky, but on the other hand, it's our boy Settra, so I sucked up my pride, put my gloves on, and got to work. A lot of people were wondering what happened to our glorious wannabe golden overlord when the end times blew up the planet. Many of our favourite heroes had returned, or at least received mentions, except for Settra for quite a long time. After being one of the only well-written parts of the end times and being set up as a massive badass, you would assume that Games Workshop would jump on the chance to make him a key character in Age of Sigmar. Well, I am here to say he is back, or was back as they killed him off. Fucking hell. I had my own headcanon for how I wanted Settra and by extension the Tomb King faction to return, which didn't really happen, but that is okay. I'll explain that headcanon later, so make sure you watch the entire video to give me that succulent watch time. Not that it matters if I get watch time, because YouTube won't put ads on this video anyway. So subscribe instead. We've nearly taken over Italian spastic cunt, which is my only reason for existing at this point. Settra first made an appearance in Age of Sigmar in mention. He had been reforged into a Stormcast Eternal by the name of Settra, and he was leading a band of warriors called the Imperishables. He was described as being a no-nonsense go-getter who despises Nagash, which matches up with our Skelly boy pretty well. In saying that though, a lot of people, including myself, were pretty pissed that he was kind of shoehorned in an attempt at fan service. It seemed that Settra, the man who rejected the Chaos Gods, killed Kolek's Sun-Eater, and refused to serve, was now happily dotting along as a Sigmarine without a unique model. Sure, he got the golden body and immortality he craved from his new Stormcast body, but I feel like he should have gotten it on his own. Anywho, the author promised us that was not the end of Settra. I'm going to keep calling him Settra, not Settra, because Settra is a retarded name. Settra was to return in a recent novel and take on a bigger role, and by bigger role, he became a jihadist. Basically, the book's protagonist needs to go into a vault that contains a powerful weapon, as well as a faith-powered lightning engine. Also, the vault was called a Storm Vault, because Games Workshop love their themes when it comes to naming conventions. Settra was described physically as covered in hieroglyphs and looking very spooky and skeletal for a Stormcast, so at least he matches what he should look like for the most part. But, he uses a fucking hammer for some reason instead of his iconic Kopesh. Absolute waste. He is also lacking his extremely harsh and demeaning presence. He's a lot more relaxed now, and if someone is annoying him, he will choose to ignore them rather than flay them alive and feed them to the tomb beetles, which used to be his go-to. Anywho, the protagonist goes to the Storm Vault to try and keep it away from the forces of death. However, Manfred von Boldkunt rocks up with his army to try killing the vault for himself. Settra then comes and the Stormcast do battle with Manfred's goons. Manfred and Settra engage in combat, with Settra saying his own name. This causes Manfred to momentarily panic, as Settra is a beast. However, he soon begins to laugh and accuse Sigmar of lying and stealing Settra's name for one of his warriors. As if he was really fighting Settra, he thought he would be dead by now. Which is a pretty bloody good point. It's like the writers are trying to make Settra look like a badass, as well as useless at the same time. It's really jarring. Settra is unable to beat Manfred, so he pulls a pro-gamer move. He throws himself into the faith-powered lightning engine, which causes it to overload. One of the protagonists are like, yo, he gonna die, and then the other one was like, I don't know man, Settra's pretty cool, but then Settra explodes into nothingness, the explosion releasing the powers of the engine and severely wounding Manfred and killing his entire army. Now the writer probably thought he was giving Settra a cool send-off, but bro, we don't want him to be sent off. The protagonist was like, yep, Settra is 100% dead forever, which just sucks balls. The only way for them to make this up to me is if the explosion actually freed Settra from his binding to Sigmar and allows him to reform his body and soul infused with the power of the Faith Lightning engine, hence getting a cool tabletop model as well as his own roster and rules. That would be the end result I could get around. Now that is canonically what we have on Settra in Age of Sigmar. This is what I think we should have gotten. Settra left the old world infused with the power of the Chaos Gods, who he then rejected and began massacring their armies. His soul was burning bright with the power of defiance. I think this should have been enough to allow him to be reborn in Age of Sigmar in his own accord, not relying on Sigmar to reforge him. Maybe it takes him a little bit longer to appear, because he was not an incarnate, but he should still appear. His new form should be that of a large golden, godly Egyptian construct, a mixture of themes of death, Egypt, obsidian and gold. in the same vein as the old Tomb King constructs, but more refined and high fantasy. He should start with pretty intense amnesia, whilst maintaining his personality of defiance, wandering the realms trying to figure out who he is and what destiny has for him, acting as an anti-hero who holds a special hatred for Nagash and the undead, yet he doesn't fully understand why. A scene I play over in my head to introduce Settra could probably go like this. The forces of Order are battling against a Nurglite army. Suddenly a chaos portal opens to the rear of the Sigmarine army. The commander prepares for the worst, as it seems to have been flanked, until only one Nurgle warrior stumbles out, covered in deep gashes. A golden figure emerges behind him and cleaves the deceased Hulk in two with a single strike. The figure then disappears back into the chaos portal as it collapses in on itself. What an awesome way that he could have been introduced. The fans would go nuts theory crafting who this golden skeletal warrior was, knowing it was likely Settra, and excited for the return of the Tomb Kings in some form. What we got instead was a half-assed fan service, as Game Shock may have been, "We are sorry we killed Warhammer Fantasy, but look, Age of Sigmar is still fantasy, we have some of the same characters, see?" Oh well, what can you do? I'll tell you what you can fucking do. In honor of our bony boy, I'll be streaming a retardedly modded Settra campaign this Sunday 3 PM Washington time and 8 PM UK time. It's my first time solo streaming and I'll be doing the same time every week, so get down and support your boy. And that does us for today guys. If you want to support the channel further, then Patreon is the place to be. Only $1 gives you access to everything, including a boatload of Warhammer hentai. If you guys want to chat shit or play games, then head over to the Discord. Cheers for watching. Peace.